Hi there, welcome to the More Sibyl podcast. This is a podcast for Blacks, Asians, and those who love them. I am Mo, and I am your host, ready to spark your curiosity as I take you on this adventurous ride of exploring cultures through the stories of my guests from all over the world. On this show, we get really personal, discussing salient issues that are relevant to our contemporary age and also building community around them. As our guests exercise courage and vulnerability in sharing their life's experiences, we hope that in turn you are inspired by them and that you get the courage needed to set your own stories free. Enjoy the ride, and thank you so much for listening. Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the show. This is the More Sibyl podcast, and we've had some technical issues with our with the other co-host, Amina. So to be able to enter the studio again, but in the interest of time, we're just going to go ahead and explore the story with our great guest today. So I have yet to explore her story. So a lot of what I'm going to be hearing and even talking together with her will be new for me. But in few words, her name is Urmi. She is Bengali, and her name stands for wave, which I think is super, super cool. She lives in Italy. She's actually Bengali Italian, and which, I think is a very fine mix because she's probably the first person I would, ever meet with that kind of mix yet. And she volunteers in non-profit organizations, children's hospitals, for example, helping less fortunate women to financially empower themselves. She was born in Italy to immigrant Bengali parents, and she's always felt like she didn't belong to both worlds. And her interests are in mental health, lifestyle, reading, especially generally around women. And one of her struggles, according to her, is being a disappointment in her parents' eyes because of not meeting the expectations of a Bengali girl. And I can imagine that this narrative can be true for so many immigrants who live in countries that are different from their parents' culture. But in any event, today with us on the show today is Urmi, and thank you so much for joining us today. Hi, Urmi.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm actually going to correct you. I'm not living in Italy. I'm living in Canada. So I'm right now I'm connected from Montreal.
Wow. So we have a Bengali Italian living in Canada. You are just, I don't know the word for you, but there's something nomadic. I guess that's the word. I don't want to say digital nomad. What an interesting spin. And Ayamide, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can. Hello, everyone.
Hello, welcome. Jeez, we finally find you, like almost like a see us. Are you with us? Can you hear us? Anyways,
let's not jinx it though.
I know, like knock on wood. Let's just I'm just curious to know, like, what are you like? And I also want to, as you answer that, like, why would you think? Well, I know the whys, but why do you think people like that come from your background? When I say your background, I mean if you live in a country that is different from the culture your parents are born into, there's always that fear of just not living up to that expectation. Why do you think the struggles are quite, prevalent in communities like that? But first of all, what are you like? First of all, what are you? How do you define yourself and all that kind of fancy stuff?
So I always like to tell people I am Italian by birth, Bengali by blood, and Canadian by law. But overall, I think I'm more of a global citizen because I try to embrace all the nationality and be open to other cultures. But if you ask me, that's how I like to tell people, because I have all these three nationalities really making me the person that I am. Of course, the Canadian citizenship, I got it like a few years ago after living in Canada for a long time. But my very, very first nationalities are the Bengali and the Italian.
Wow, that was so beautifully said. And wow, so how long, so you were born in Italy, right, to your parents? How long did you live in Italy for?
I lived for like 18, 19 years before I moved to Canada. And so I lived my whole life in Italy, but even in Italy, we were always moving. Like we were never settled in one place, and we like moved all around Italy. We went from south to north, then we went to UK for a year, then we came back to Italy, and then after I moved to Canada, like I changed completely continent.
So the move to Canada, was that your parents, doing that, or that was your decision?
No, it was my own personal choice.
Okay. So back to the second part of my question, I'd like to explore that, because I think that especially when you come from a society that is more socially cohesive, like Asian culture, African culture, and you move to the Western side of things, children tend to pick up, it's not going to be purely Bengali or purely Nigerian culture, even though your home can feel like just one culture, but your kids interact more with the world that even parents don't have this exposure. And I can sometimes see that conflict between, how the kids are trying to find the middle ground to still be respectful of the parents' culture, but also have some liberty to be able to talk to their peers and not feel like they're, being too, weird about things. But that can also cause for conflicts in the family life and with the parents. So I guess, what has your experience been, with that angle?
It has been a struggle, like you mentioned, because it has been an internal struggle, especially because all my surroundings I was always surrounded by Italian people. There were no one that was actually like me, and there were not that many immigrants too back in the days that we were talking about, like the 90s. So I was like the very first one. Even when I went to school, I would only see people that looked Italian. There was no one that looked like me. So for me, it was a lot of a struggle, because I was like, oh, these people, they cannot understand me. They cannot understand why I cannot do certain things, why I cannot behave a certain way, why I have to be home at a certain time. So I always felt like I was not fitting a box. And then when I would go home, it was another struggle, because I would be surrounded by the whole Bengali community. And I was like, I don't think I even fit this community, because I feel like I have that Italian side of me that I interact with every day that really shaped me and that really influenced my behavior. So it was a very big struggle, because if you might be aware, the whole South Asian culture is very, it has a very rigid, it's very rigid. They have like certain rules. Women are seen a certain way. They have to be a certain way. So for me, it was really, really a struggle. And it was a struggle when I was going to school, because all my friends, they would like hang out in the afternoon. Maybe they would like do homework together and just go out and play with the kids. And I was not allowed to do that, because my parents were so strict with me, even though I knew that inside I wasn't doing anything wrong by just wanting to be around my friends. So this like went on for a very, very long time. Even after when I became a teenager, it was still the same struggle. And I remember I had like friends telling me, oh, let's go to the mall, let's go shop around. And I would always be like, no, I cannot come. But it wasn't because I didn't want to, it was because I was forbidden of doing that. And often in times I had to actually lie to my parents and do it like behind their backs, even though I know that I wasn't doing anything wrong. It was just me walking with some friends, and they were all female friends, and that also was another struggle. They were like, yeah, you cannot like have male friends, they have to be like all female, or do not hang out with guys, it's not good, people will see you, people will judge you. So that was a struggle, because I was like, they're telling me this, but then I'm not doing anything wrong. So why can I not do that? And to go back to your point, like I have a lot of relatives that moved like in like other countries, moved from Bangladesh to go to UK or other countries. And I have cousins who told me exactly the same thing. They were like, our parents moved from Bangladesh to go to all these like Western cultures with their expectation that we stay true to our roots, but they cannot expect that because we have this other influence, this other world that will shape our personality and identity. So it was a struggle.
Wow, I mean, you sound like so many of my friends, you know, even though they might be from different countries, your stories are so similar, right? And I also want to even explore, like, even as a child, like, let's take your perspective as a child. I imagine that your parents did that out of love, whatever the definition might be. And also maybe their parental instincts kicking in so you don't get corrupted by, this Western world that doesn't seem to have a lot of structure, right? Which kind of, it's ironical because they made the move to bring you to this, new whole world. I guess, what do you think you would like to say to parents who might have kids and, parents like yours? And again, I'm not saying your parents did it the wrong way. I think they did what they knew, and but I imagine that you can always see the good side and the bad side of of these things. But what would be your suggestion to parents who are like yours and still trying to navigate how can I best help my child? So in a way, they're still holding on to our culture, but I don't want to be too, I guess, strict on them or drive them away.
Yeah, like you said, like everything they did was of course out of love, right? Like they never meant to hurt me or do anything bad. It was not to, like, it wasn't because they felt that I was doing anything wrong. It was just because they were protective and worried, as all parents are. But I think as parents, when you are in that type of situation like mine, you have to be open-minded about it. Like you have to be open and you have to be willing to accept that your daughters, your sons will grow up with different nationalities or different cultures, and you have to be okay to accept that. And I think communication is so important because especially for the South Asian community, like we don't have that open communication between among our parents. Like what our parents tell us is should be the right way. You just have to follow what they tell you. But it's not always the right path. There are so many paths that we can take. There are so many perspectives out there. And I think it's always important to be open, to be willing to listen to them, to understand them, and to also be able to be open about it. Because now when I grew up, my parents always made me feel like I don't want to belong to the Bengali culture because this is how I'm being treated. So this is something that you push away kids if you're imposing things on them. And I think it's better that you let them have all the cultures around them so that it will also influence the relationship. And so I think that's the key. Those are like my messages, like being open and having an open communication.
African parents just left that chat room when you talked about open communication between the kids because I guess our cultures are similar in that way. And I was going to make a joke, like, was that what drove you across the world to Canada, like to be as far away from home as possible, like find your own path?
Yeah, partially yes. That was also one of the reasons.
But I guess a follow-up question to that would be for kids. So imagine the struggles you had just trying to fit in. Because, you probably also stood out because of your skin color and, the way you probably dress, the kind of food you ate and the things you want to talk about. And you also want to try to look cool to your Italian friends because, at that age, your friends really matter. For kids who might be listening to this or parents with kids, who might be listening to this, that are struggling to fit in. Like, so imagine casting your mind back to how you were many, many years ago. What kind of words of encouragement would you like to, pass along?
You know what, like what you just said, it was like how we dress, right? Like I remember when I was like 14, 13, my dad will always tell me to wear the typical traditional dresses when I'm just going for grocery. And I remember not wanting to do that because I was like, my friends will see me, they will see me dressed that way. They're not familiar with our cultures and I don't want to because I was always worried that I would have been probably judged and, people might say something about me. And I remember I would go to the shopping mall with my dad and I would have like traditional Indian clothes. And I remember people just observing me. They would just stare at me because they were not used to see like that type of culture. And I remember always not wanting to dress that way. But now as I grew up and as I embraced both cultures, I'm pretty proud of that. Like, because I do feel like I belong to two worlds, I'm okay wearing traditional dresses when I'm going out. And actually, what I would tell people, what I would tell the kids is, I think do what feels right for you. because if your parents tell you, okay, you have to do this way, but it's not good, it's not right for you, then don't do it. Like, don't feel like you are supposed to be following something just because you're being forced, because then when you're forced, it's not genuine, it's not natural. You start like moving away from your roots. And I would just say, like, just do what's right for you. And I think with time, you will understand a little bit more of yourself. And I think that's what happened with me. Like, initially I didn't like wearing traditional clothes, but now with time, as I explore myself, as I try to understand who I am, I'm okay. I'm okay wearing like typical pants or t-shirt, as well as wearing typical like Indian clothes, as saris, or, you know, we have all those stuff, all those types of traditional clothes. So just do what you feel is right for you.
Wow. Thank you for that. And I can imagine that, you know, when you grew up, the internet wasn't like as big and, you know, wide and TikTok-y as it is right now. But I seem to see that it seems to be like Asia is now looking very cool. And I know Asia is really, really big and there's so many cultures in there. But I can imagine with people being more expressive with their culture, and, you know, even other people trying to borrow aspects of different cultures, it might not be so weird to see someone wearing like a lehenga to, like, you know, school or to the grocery store, because, you know, diversity seems to be more accepted. And I'm so sorry to hear that you had a lot of struggle, you know, just, you know, trying to fit in. But it's also amazing to see how you've been able to rise above all of that to be who you are today and embracing all those multiple entities, you know, within you. So kudos to you, Urmi.
Thank you.
Yeah. But so that's that. So you moved to Canada. And Canada is quite a melting pot. So Would you say, what are the kind of groups of people you tend to relate with? Because this move right now feels like this is your own decision. You made that decision to be, you know, to come to this side of the world. So I have a lot of questions about that. First, why Canada? And then two, your group of friends, how did you choose them? And the community you are making life with in Canada, what were the factors you were looking for when you were putting those together?
Well, Canada, it was for like different reasons. A lot of it is for personal reasons, but I have a family over here. And for me, Canada was eye-opening, honestly. Like, it's such a beautiful country, and it was so eye-opening because in Italy, like, let's say you go to Italy, you mainly see like Italian people. We do have a portion of immigrants, but it's mainly Italian people. But in Canada, it's something else. It's like in the States, you see people from all the cultures, everyone speaking different languages. And that's what I felt like, okay, maybe this place is where I can build my identity and probably call home one day. So I did my university here. And when I went to university, so this is the thing. I did not have Bengali friends when I grew up. And when I came to Canada, I was like, oh, now probably is the chance to have like Bengali friends. But then for some reason, I didn't want to have Bengali friends. And not because I told myself I don't want to. It was more because it wasn't happening. So all my friends were actually from Canada. But by Canada, I mean like, I don't know, like Chinese or maybe some Italian as well, French, Moroccan. So I had like all these like different kinds of people from different nationality. And a lot of my friends are actually from China, Vietnam. I have a lot from Latin American countries. That's where I felt like I was able to be myself among those people. So I grew up a lot with those, my university time, these are the people that I hang out with, and I really enjoyed it because I feel like I learned about something else that wasn't just strictly Bengali or Italian. And this is when I feel like it just helped me to be a more open-minded person, because it was my first time actually meeting so many people from so many different countries. So for me, that was amazing. And even nowadays, I really enjoy the fact that in Canada, like anywhere you go, you see people more that look like me. You know, but what I mean by that is not Italian Bengali, it's, let's say, Italian French or Italian Mexican. So I feel like I'm not alone in this. There are people that have a similar struggle or similar story as me.
So like the cultural hyphenates, like the this and that, people like you who want that sense of connection. So is it safe to assume that your people are people who, regardless of where they're from, but you're all trying to find that identity mesh, the things that you identify with, but even though there might be different things, but just that connection and trying to, make a new path, for yourself.
Yeah, yes. And you know what's even more interesting is I wasn't too much on social media until a few years ago. And now, for instance, I'm on Instagram and I follow actually girls that have the same struggle as me. These are like South Asian girls who are, let's say, brought up in South Africa, or let's say, I don't know, in another country, who also went through my same struggles, where they had like parents who were super strict, worried about the judgmental society, and trying to break the bias, like, between women and men, and trying to create a more equal world and trying to find your identity. So even Instagram was eye-opening for me, because I see more girls like me trying to change the world and trying to create a community in that Instagram world. So even though social media can be, sometimes toxic, it has its positive side. And I found people that went through my same struggle as a South Asian person.
Oh, wow. That's really, really neat. So I know on your blog, you had talked about how it was very difficult for you to even consider yourself being Italian. That was like the dangling piece that you didn't feel confident enough to include as your identity. What really helped you to be able to say, okay, I'm Bengali, I'm also Italian, and you call yourself, is it Bengali Italian or Italian Bengali? And how do you know which one comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Well, I tell people I'm Italian Bengali. That's usually what I say, what I tell people. And actually, the fact that I tell like I'm Italian Bengali, it comes from many things, but I do feel like I do feel that Italian part has a bigger portion in me, because I love eating pasta, I love talking Italian, I love using gestures. But the thing is, when I came to Canada and I would go to university, people will ask me where I was from. And every time people would ask me that question, I was struggling. I was like, what do I tell them? That I'm Bengali or that I'm Italian? And there were times where I would tell them, oh, I'm Bengali. And then they would look at me and be like, oh, but you have an accent which is very like Spanish or Italian. So then I was like, okay, let me tell you my life story. So I have to tell them I'm Italian. And then when I would tell people that I'm Italian instead, and they were like, yeah, but hold on a second, you don't look Italian, you look Bengali. And I was like, okay, let me tell you the story again. And so I was like,
there needs to be an app for this where they can just kind of QR code and just download all of your bio data.
So I was like, you know what? It took me a while. And after a couple of years, I was like, you know what? I don't want people to tell me you're Bengali or Italian. I'm just going to tell them who I am. They just have to accept my identity. So I tell people I am Italian Bengali. That's the first thing I tell them. I don't tell them I'm this or that. I'm both.
So Italian Bengali, is that the same? Would that still carry the same connotation as saying Bengali Italian?
For me, yes.
Can you tell us the difference? I'm just curious to know.
For me, it's the same. Like whether you tell me I'm Bengali Italian or Italian Bengali, I accept it. As long as you put the two of them in the sentence, that's fine.
And as time goes on, you're gonna have to add, Canadian to that. Sorry, go ahead, I read it.
No, I was going to ask exactly that. That do you? I feel like by now you probably consider yourself Canadian as well, but then I'm wondering why you're not adding that. Is that? Yeah, I'm just curious about where is the Canadian for you in the middle of all of that?
No, I don't like to tell people I'm Canadian. And actually, it's the first time that someone asked me that question. I feel like I'm not yet there that I feel I'm Canadian. I know it's part of me, but if you ever ask me, I will always tell you. Like if you ask me now and if you ask me a couple of years, I will probably just keep telling you the same answer, that I'm Italian Bengali. And maybe for the reason that I'm not yet to consider Canada my home, because if you ask me what's your home, I will always tell you it's Italy, because that's where I spent most of my childhood. But I know Canada also helped me to explore my identity. So it's not there yet, but for now I like to, it might happen, but I don't feel that connection yet where I'm gonna say I'm also Canadian.
I find this interesting actually, because I live in England, and there's been quite a bit of and I suppose this is happening everywhere in a lot of countries, but here there's been quite a lot of sort of conversation recently in the last few years about what does it mean to be English, and who gets to be English, and there's people who feel, yeah, if you come from another country and you naturalize it, that doesn't make you English, and that sort of thing. And then there's people who think of it as, oh, well, you have to be from here, whatever that means, right? There's a word people use for that. I can't remember it now, but something like, not ethnically English, but something like that, right? And it's been very interesting sort of thinking about it. I actually have a friend who has these conversations with me about, why would you want to be English, and aren't you proud of your Nigerian identity? And I'm like, well, why do I have to choose? Or why should I have to choose? Right? Why can't I be both? And that's what I'm hearing with, your like what you said about Italian Bengali. Like, why shouldn't you be both? And there's something you said that I thought was really interesting, where you said, it's about where feels like home for you. Right? Or where you feel shaped your identity. I suppose what I'm trying to speak to is there's this whole larger conversation about nationalities and identities, and who gets to claim a nationality, and who gets to gatekeep a nationality, right? And for me, it's like, well, why should you gatekeep a nationality at all? There was a time when that was, a thing, but like, do we still need that in the day and age we live in?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think it's also having communication, like having, I guess, more dialogue, and letting the person let you know, hey, this is how I want to be identified as, right? And because that sense of home you feel, there's no way someone else can define that for you or call that out for you. And I imagine that's the reason why Canadian is not yet included on your hyphenation will be, you got to Canada at a very later age in life, right? You were like younger when you got to Canada, and Canada being such a melting pot, it's not quite as distinct as Italian, Bengali. But Canada I feel like it's a modifier that runs through your identity, because it's the platform that gave you the voice to harmonize who you really were. So even though Canada is not appearing as, one of your identities yet, there's still a profound gratitude to this place because it helped you find your people. Would that be right?
Yeah. Yes, that you said it like correctly. Everything that you said, it's correct. Like, no, I honestly agree. You hit the spot, literally. Yeah.
Okay, good. And don't be in a hurry to add, Canadian to it. I'm sure, it's such a beautiful place, and there are nice people there. They wouldn't mind, whatever you fall towards.
No, well, I suppose before I ask my question, I just want to say, I also like the idea of, like when you said you're open to adding Canadian later. But what I heard, if I'm not wrong, correct me, is there's a possibility that you never might, and that's fine. And I thought actually that speaks to some of, like, first generation immigrant parents, doesn't it? Some of them never really add it. And obviously their children do. Some of them do, but not all of them do. And it's fine.
Actually, to add to that, because my parents live in UK, and I think if you ask them what their nationality is, I'm pretty sure they will just say Bengali. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, like even though my dad has lived for like 30 years in Italy, I'm not sure if he would consider himself Italian. I know my mom for sure, she will say she's Bengali. I don't think that she will add the British part to it. But I don't know if they will add the Italian part, to be honest. And I think it goes back to what you said before, because I think like for me to add Canada, it's because Canada is such a melting pot. There isn't like it could be everything as it could be anything. But if you go to Italy or Bangladesh, it's either one or the other. So you have to choose. Or I think it's like you said, just because you live in a place, it doesn't necessarily become part of your identity. It depends on what you choose to make it as your identity, you know, like you could be living in a place, but you're not interacting with the people, you're not integrating with the culture, with the community and things like that. Then you are most likely not part of that world. Then you have your own world, which could be the one from your origins or where you are born or what you consider home. Because I also feel like your identity and your nationality belongs to what you consider to be home, which is not necessarily the country of your parents or the country where you were born, I think.
That's so true. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So I suppose a question, tell me if this has been asked already. But what's like, what's something you really love about like your Italianness and your Bengaliness?
Okay, so about my Italianness,
because obviously they both mean something to you. And then, sorry, one last thing. And then what's something you're finding interesting about your Canadianness, such as it is?
Okay, so for my Italian part, there are many things that I like, and I like the country itself. It's so beautiful. There's so much history and art. I love the cuisine. Like, I'm a big fan of pasta, and I can eat pasta. I always tell this to people, I can eat pasta every day. It doesn't matter which time you serve it. I will eat it with no issues, and it just brings me so much happiness. Like, every time I'm sad, I have a plate of pasta, and I'm happy after that. And I guess the people, I have very good close friends. I'm still friends with them after so many years, and like everyone that I grew up with, especially my Italian community, they never made me feel like I was different from them. They always made me feel welcoming, and I have very strong ties with them. I still talk to them after leaving Italy for such a long time. And of course the language, the whole gesture things. And I like the fact that I like so many people outside of Italy, when you tell them, oh, you're from Italy, they're like, wow. So I'm like, okay, that's a good thing. And about Bangladesh, I like the cuisine as well. But if I have to choose the cuisine, I will always tell you the Italian one. But what I like the most is the traditions and that we have, and the fact that we wear these colorful and very highly decorated and literally traditional clothes, which I really enjoy wearing. And I like showing off on wearing those clothes. So that's something that I really like about our culture, because I feel like it's so rich and so colorful. And I like the fact that now we know more and more about it. Where back in the days when I was growing up, people didn't know too much about it. And now people are seeing this side of the world where we come from. And I like that. And about the Canadian part, oh my God, that's such a hard question. I would say about Canada, I like the fact that Canada is such an open-minded, can we say open-minded country? Like, it's such an open country. And I like the fact that it's so welcoming to immigrants and is willing to accept everything. And I like the fact that it celebrates diversity and it accepts diversity. And I think that's one thing that I really love about Canada. Like, we're such a welcoming and nice country. Like, people are actually genuinely nice. I noticed that when I came to Canada, I was like, wow, people are so nice. So that's one thing that I like about the Canadian side.
I imagine that the Italian part of you that's supposed to be expressive and, you know, and then the Bengali was supposed to be demure as a woman. Like you find that they can be in conflict sometimes. Like, do I make too many gestures, or just sit still and be pretty?
That's one thing. Like again, you hit the spot. That's it. But then I'm like, yeah, in Canada, I can be both. I can be expressive as I could be like a very quiet person.
Canada is beginning to look like a country of asylum, like, for asylum seekers. Like, let's go be ourselves in Canada. Now, I had 2 follow-up questions, and if you are at liberty to share, what was the nature of your parents' move? Like, what made them leave Bangladesh? And then also, do you have siblings?
So first of all, talking about my parents, they moved after they got married, and they wanted to move. Basically, they just wanted to move abroad to start a new life, to have a better life, and that's how they chose. They chose Italy. And back in the days, it was easier to move to Italy. Like, it wasn't so strict as it could have been right now. And then I have a younger sibling. I have a sister. She's like 25. So
is she following your footsteps as well? Do you have do you see her also struggling with the same thing you struggled, or would you say you've been able to help her? Being the first child, you take on a lot, right? You're like
exactly me being the first child, and also being the first child also from my dad's side. I'm like, I have to be the example. Also from my cousins, it was a lot for me. It was so much pressure. Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
But for my sister, it was different actually. Like all of the things that I couldn't do when I was a kid, she's able to do them. So she's able to travel. She's able to go out, come home late. Like, she has so much more freedom than me. And
I hope she's sending you flowers every day, because you made that happen for her, right? She needs to be paying you some repatriation fee or something, because you paid the price for her to be able to do all of that.
I'm glad that she's doing all that, because I feel like I miss that. I miss it. I don't want people going through the same thing that I went. So I'm really glad that she's doing all that, and she's exploring, and she's like traveling, doing the things that she loves. But of course, it's still hard. She also got other types of pressure from my parents. As you can imagine, South Asian parents, that's how they are. But at least she's able to, be a bit more, I want to say, bold, and be able to say, you know what, this is what I want to do. I'm just going to do it. So she does it.
Oh, yeah. Gen Z, don't try those generation of kids. They will call you out. Ayomide, as the resident, so Ayomide is a psychiatrist, so he knows a lot about the mind. As a resident shrink here, I'm just curious to know why parents make a decision to leave their home country and move to a different country, and then still have this high expectation of their kids not to, at least find their own path. Like, why do you think parents struggle a lot with that? And this is not just, what's the word, germane to Urmi's family. I've heard this many times in other, cultures, especially coming from the less, more conservative parts of the world to a more liberal, part of the world.
Well, I mean, I think it makes all the sense it does, really, to be honest. Because, so I have a friend here who, I often make the McDonald's joke. There's this McDonald's sort of gag that we have, running gag. And it's basically about the fact that her kids once came home from school and said to her that, do you know what, that why don't I just finish from secondary school and work in McDonald's? Like, what's wrong with it? Because obviously she wanted them to go to uni and everything. And I think they were just messing with her, but she nearly died of a heart attack.
Don't do that. That's a heart attack, for an African parent.
But and I remember I had this conversation with a friend who is from here, and like English and grew up here and everything. And she didn't understand what the big deal was about them. Obviously, no shade on working in McDonald's, but my English friend didn't understand why it was such a big deal in terms of the sort of ambition that parents have for their kids. And that was the first time it really struck me. Oh, you actually don't get it, do you? You don't know what it means to not have a safety net. Because that's where a lot of our parents are coming from, right? Like, if you didn't do well in school and in life, then who was going to take care of you? Right? And they needed you to do well because they knew they wouldn't always, like, there wasn't like, many of us are not coming from countries where there's welfare and all of these things like benefits and, you know, all these sort of backups. There's family, obviously, but like everybody's also maybe like trying to do well and people aren't doing so well. So it's like, you need to do well. You have to do well, because if you don't, then what happens to you? And I think it's the other thing is a lot of our parents, you know, they leave things behind. I know people who've left, and I'm sure, Urmi, you will know people like that as well, who've left Nigeria and they were actually doing very well, and actually coming here was a step down. You know, maybe like in Nigeria, they had drivers and, you know, domestic servants, you know, and all domestic staff and all this sort of stuff. And they're coming here and have to do everything by themselves. And actually for them, that's a step down, but they're doing it because they hope that their kids get a better life.
Catching bus.
Yeah. So, you know, obviously that's not everyone, but that's some people, you know. So I think it's really just that, you know, many people come here for their kids, really, or for the hope that there'll be a better life for their kids. And so I think there's always that fear. What if it was all for nothing? Right? What if I did all of that for nothing? And then every now and then their kids will say something or do something and they think, oh my God, I did it all for nothing. She's going to be trash and she's going to fail and I'm going to have failed and I'm going to be a terrible parent. So I think it's the pressure they put on themselves that they put on. Exactly. And then what am I going to say? They're going to say, well, we told you, you shouldn't have taken her to the US or to the UK or to Canada.
And I've become a mocking stock to all of my other culture people.
Yeah.
Laughing stock.
It's so common. I hear that too. I hear that they tell me too.
Thank you for that, because, you know, I mean, I think it makes sense the way you described it, Ayomide, and I guess the challenge for parents listening to this is just keep that line of communication open, and once you can trust your kids and you've imbibed that trust in them, I think it should be fine. Of course, you know, you don't let them just go off on their merry ways and get into trouble. But Urmi, I'm curious to know, like, what's your relationship with your parents like this? What kind of you know, conversations do you have? Because I'm sure you've done great things. You've left home, and I'm very sure they're proud of you. But what's your conversation like these days with your parents?
I'm not sure if they're proud of me, but it's still a struggle. It's still very hard. It's hard to change their mentality. Sometimes it really feels like I'm talking to people that are still living in 1950s, and I feel like their mentality, their way of thinking hasn't progressed as the world has changed. So it's hard. Honestly, it's hard, and I think it's hard for many South Asian people like me that have South Asian parents. It's an ongoing process. It's a work in progress, and I honestly think it would take a lot of years until, you know, things can get better. And I think relationship, because we just think to two different ways, relationship can get really hard. So for me, it's been a challenge, if that answers the question.
I have a question. Just a quick question. Are you going to share this podcast with them when it comes out?
Me? They don't understand English, so if we do it in Bengali, they will understand it. I don't think they will get it even if it's Italian. So.
Will you share with your sister though?
I do share everything with my sister. She listens to all my podcasts and she's proud of me. So.
Because I know it might not seem like that, Urmi, but I know I have no doubt that your parents love you. They might not express it the way the language you're speaking, as far as your heart language, but they love you, you know. And I've had issues with my dad as well. And the older I get, the more clarity I see. But with time, you will get more clarity. But never doubt their love for you. It might be expressed in different ways, but it's still all love, okay? But I mean, what do you have to say about just that generational gap? You know, especially the way she described how it's so difficult.
It is. Yeah, I think with the generational gap, I think on one level it's just parents, right? Like it's not just for, you know, people like us. I think it's just parents. Like there's literally a generational gap. Your parents, by definition, are from a different generation. And that's always going to create the challenge that it does. But then obviously, I think for people like us who are people of two worlds, then you then have it's not just a generational gap. It's a, you know, I like to think of it as it's not just a distance of space, of time. It's a distance of space, right? You're different because you're now coming from your influence. Like you said earlier, your influences are now coming from a different place that they haven't engaged with. And those influences are shaping you, whether they like it or not. And it's just what it is. And I think it takes them time to come to terms with, and everybody comes to terms with it differently. And I think ultimately all parents do not, let me not say all, but most parents come to terms with it, just at different speeds. And it's just sort of that thing. I mean, like I have cousins who I grew up with and they were like 12, 13 when I saw them last. And then I was in Nigeria recently and my cousin is now 25 and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, she's not a girl anymore. She's a woman now. And I thought, oh, right. So I'm going to treat her as a woman. I'm going to, you know, treat her as an adult, a fellow adult. And I'm going to have conversations with her as I'm having with an adult. But then I remember coming back to the UK and I was talking to some colleagues from work. And these are colleagues who are working, you know, who I work with. And so some of them are fairly senior in their roles. I remember thinking as I was talking to them, oh my goodness, they're the same age as my cousin. So even though in my head I was seeing her as a woman, I realized I wasn't still seeing her in terms of that level of responsibility. Still, and I thought I still have to upgrade her further, don't I? In my mind, and this is just my cousin. Imagine with a child that you live with and you see every day, and I think it's harder for parents. Actually, do you know what? I think I was having this chat with one of my other cousins who grew up she went to school in the US. Her family is in Nigeria. And I wonder what you'd say to this, Urmi. But this particular cousin of mine was saying how, because she's living far away from home, her parents have had a bigger challenge adapting to how she's growing and maturing compared to if she was staying with them in the house and they had to deal with her on a day-to-day basis and sort of come to terms with it on a day-to-day basis. I don't know if you found that dynamic for you.
No, actually not. I think it just parted us away, actually. But like, I think it's like you said, it's a generational gap. And I think for some parents, it might take longer time. For some parents, it might take shorter time. I think it just depends. It depends also from the culture that you're from, because I think the struggle that I went through, a lot of cultures face it, but I think some cultures are a bit more progressive, more open-minded, whereas some others are not yet. They might be a little bit more conservative. But I think it will probably take some time. Eventually, I'm hoping things will come, like they will come in, like they will accept it. But I think it just depends on how people react to it. Some people, they're okay with it. Some people, they're not okay with it. Some people, they don't have a choice. So it just depends. I think it depends on how people react to it and how willing they are to change things, basically.
Yeah. And let me just, maybe if it's worth sharing, this would be that you found so much joy in doing what you do, like your platform, empowering women. You have this, passion for financial literacy and helping people get that. You found your calling. And so keep, honing your craft, keep finding those ways to put more value and happiness in your life. And invariably, your parents are going to be happy about that, because even though you might not agree on, cultural leanings, that their child is happy. I mean, any parent in their right mind, they're happy about that. So the other struggles you have about, not connecting with them, give it time. As you get older, you might even find yourself just understanding them more, you know, because in my 20s and even early 30s, I couldn't really understand my parents. It was until I really got older and I realized that, okay, what could be going on here? Because I have my own strong opinions about things, the same way they have their opinions about things, but they might be in different directions. But I'm their child, so I'm a creation of theirs, right? So it's not difficult to see why there can be conflicts, because, you know, I have both of their personalities plus mine. But keep pursuing that happiness, and with time, you'll be able to have dialogue, and it's going to be beautiful. But I don't want you wasting, or anyone even listening, I don't want you wasting, you know, so much time trying to convince or, you know, convict your parents to, you know, come over to your side, where you can be spending that time on, you know, much more productive things, and, you know, finding you happy and showing them that this is a possible path. You're not trying to prove anything to them, but in your pursuit of happiness, they see that, wow, I am glad she went her way, you know? So you'll be an embodiment of your website, of your brand, My Ways, right? So yeah, I just wanted to encourage you in that. Now, do you visit Italy, like, you know, frequently, or have you been to Bangladesh recently as well?
Well, Italy, I've been there a couple of times after I moved to Canada, and Bangladesh, I've been there 4 times. It's very far from Canada. So we are like, I often go back to Italy, but now my parents are in UK, so I go to UK.
Yeah, nice. Now, quickly before you go, tell us a little bit about because I know you're a chartered financial analyst, right?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm studying to become one.
Well, all the best with that. But your blog has so many resources. Yeah, all the best. Tell us a little bit about how that passion came about and why you're really, really, you know, interested in empowering women, especially.
So this passion started a few years ago. Well, I want to say that I was always a very altruistic person. I always enjoyed giving back to the community, but it was really until recent years that I was like, okay, this is my story. I wish I was empowered when I was a kid. I wish I had a mentor. I wish I had someone to look like me. I wish there's someone that taught me some of the things that I know right now. And then I was like, okay, I have so much knowledge in finance. I do all these things in this world, and I do things to invest in myself and to be a better person. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to create this blog and just write things that I do, so maybe other women, other girls can feel a little bit more empowered or inspired by the things that I do. And hopefully they can resonate a little bit with me and with my personal story. And I do that through my blog, but I also volunteer in different nonprofit organization, all dedicated for women's empowerment, because I think coming from a South Asian culture where we don't have that much of gender equality, I was like, okay, this has to change. And that's how I try to do it on a smaller scale, but I know that even though I only help maybe a smaller community, it's already big enough. And so I do that a lot during my free time. I try to do like a lot of volunteering work, all dedicated for women's empowerment. So some of the things that I do, it's probably like, I don't know, I am a mentor, for instance, in one of them. I'm a financial coach in another one. Or I do some like administrative work for other nonprofit organizations. But I always try to like have a goal in mind. Like this is what I like. This is what I'm fighting for. So I'm just going to keep going through that route. And, so I do a lot of those things, and, I really enjoy them. Like it just brings me a lot of fulfillment and satisfaction, because, like when I see that someone is very happy, that someone is is able to use my help, use my knowledge to do something for themselves, I know that, I made an impact. It's maybe not 100 people, it's one person, but that's enough, more than enough.
I mean, look at you, just sparkle. You're very beautiful. You already have a smile, but I could just see it just get bigger and bigger, and then the sparkle in your eyes, and look at you go. And I can definitely see how Canada has really informed that process, because now it's like the world is your oyster. You can just do anything you want and, keep pursuing those hobbies. Canada is indeed the land for you. So I know for a fact that you speak more than one language. So can you just toot your horn a little bit, the languages you speak?
Yeah.
I can tell you something in Italian.
Oh, please do.
No? Niente, grazie per avermi invitato nel vostro podcast. Sono stata molto contenta di essere stata intervistata da voi e secondo me abbiamo avuto una conversazione molto profonda e spero che i vostri ascoltatori impareranno qualcosa da questo audio.
Oh my goodness! I had podcasts, that I could figure out. I had no.
I had podcast. I had profound. I had profound, profunda.
Profundo. Oh, wow.
And I think that was about it. Wow, that's amazing.
Rose, exactly.
Would you tell us what you said?
Yeah.
I can tell you something else if you want.
Yeah. What was the meaning of what you just said in Italian now? What was it?
Oh, I said that I'm very thankful that you guys have invited me to the podcast.
That is so cool.
I said that we had a very good interview. Oh. We had a very profound conversation, and hopefully the people that listen to it will get something out of it.
Can you say it in Bengali as well?
No, you don't want me to say it in Bengali.
I know you speak French, right?
I'm just going to speak in Italian.
Okay. It's so beautiful, the way it rolls off your tongue. And as you're talking, I mean, I've not met a lot of Italians, but you kind of shifted personality. You're not very fluent in Bengali, or you just don't.
I'm curious. Why not Bengali?
I do speak it. It's probably not. It's the way I speak it. The way I learned it is the one that I was taught at home.
I see.
It's not the perfect Bengali.
It's okay. I understand. But anyways, as you were speaking Italian, I could see that personality shift in you. Like you became like Ormita.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, where can people find you and get to know more about you? And I must also say, good job on your blog. You should be very proud of yourself. You're so consistent. You did a quick bites of information. You share stuff on networking, on how to pass exams, on stocks, on even other international markets. So keep it up, please. I like what you do. But where can people find you and learn more about your process?
So they can find me on my blog. It's called myways.ca. I also have a LinkedIn profile. It's called Urmi Hossain. And I also have a YouTube channel, which is called Urmi Hossain. And I have an Instagram. I have my own Instagram. It's called Urma Mio.
Okay, and we're gonna put all of that in the show notes where people can connect you.
Well, I wanted to. I was gonna ask if Urmi would share, if there's anything Urmi would like to share actually, in terms of what would you say are if you could share, if there's a couple of values that you wish you could share with people, just based off of what you've learned so far, what would those be, and how would you recommend that people build them?
Okay, so there are two things that I want to tell people. The first one is just be your authentic self. Because we have so many people in this world, you don't want to look like the person next to you. Just be your authentic self and just be true yourself. I think that's what matters the most. And secondly, there was this quotation that I read in a book that says, fear is the light that it's meant to guide us, or is the friend that it's meant to guide us, something like that. And that's another tip that I want to give to people, which is don't be afraid, because when you're afraid, you're missing out on opportunity. So see fear as your friend, because it will just help you to discover yourself and exploring yourself and find your true identity.
Wow, those are wise words. Authentic self and not letting fear hold us back. Thank you.
So almost like follow your fear.
Yes, follow your fear. Yes. While you're being your authentic self. That shouldn't be very hard, because we never run out of things to be afraid of, right? If anything, it's very common to have fears, but don't let it hold you back. But it's really been nice getting to know more about you, and And I really like that we place a lot of emphasis on self-acceptance as far as when you have so many identities. And I'm especially encouraged by, the tips you provided to parents who might have kids like you, and to also kids who might be in your own situation. And I think the final nudge to parents to be, you made the decision to move across culture. Please be more, a little bit more open-minded, without, of course, jeopardizing the values and the good things that you bring along with. But note that your kids are going to be different from you. And how do you, live with that in a very peaceful way? How do you guide your kids so they don't resent you?
And trust your work on them.
And it might be very difficult. And I don't say I understand all of those struggles, but we do know that when kids trust their parents and they have that open communication, it has never been a bad thing, right? So here's an encouragement to parents to, don't do things that your kids will resent you from, or just, shut the door completely on you.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's not much for me to add. Urmi has said some really amazing stuff, and you've basically summarized that. So I think I'm just going to piggyback off of what, Urmi has said, which is, about just the importance of fear. Like, fear is a signal, right? That's basically what you're saying. It's not something to run away from. It's something to process and think, what does this fear tell me about what is important to me? And then letting that guide us. And sometimes what that means is, actually, I'm afraid this will not work because it is so important to me that it works. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't do it. That's all the more reason to do it. So yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Urmi.
Thank you.
Yes. So many gems you dropped off today, Urmi. Well, on behalf of every one of us on the show, thank you so much for your time. If there are other ways we can, help, explore things together on the show, please consider coming back again. We'd love to talk about more stuff that you're interested in. But thank you so much.
Lovely.
You really are you are the bomb.com.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today, and don't forget to catch up on other episodes of the show. All right, then, and take good care of yourself.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a beautiful weekend.
You too. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.